whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are. What will you do without freedom? Will you fight? That they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
The FBI is conducting a full investigation of the Boogaloo movement, which is an accelerationist term.
To showcase the threat from individuals affiliated with the Boogaloo movement. The Boogaloo network as a whole appears to be largely anti-government.
This is the Hibiscus Podcast. What's up, guys? It's your boy, El Boogie, coming to you from the West Coast.
This is Classified Country Boy from Ohio.
This is Koa from Alabama.
So today we're going to talk about the non-aggression principle. And what is the non-aggression principle? It's basically, the definition of it is the non-coercion principle, the non-initiation of force, and zero aggression principle is the concept by libertarians that basically says that you shouldn't be aggressive to one person unless you have to defend yourself.
And so far, I kind of think that that's something that has been adopted by pretty much most everybody across the whole Boogaloo movement, is with the non-aggression principle. I mean, especially considering that a lot of people, when they're being brought into it, a lot of people, like for me, example, when I was brought into the Boogaloo movement, I was kind of, I hate the government sucks. And, it was almost borderline accelerationist, like, when do we go take the government down? And having met some other members who've been in the Boogaloo movement a lot longer than me, was like, hold on, slow your roll. Do you know what the non-aggression principle is? Now, having listened to like other liberty-minded podcasts, it was kind of like well explained through there, and it was kind of brought to me and to my attention of being a part of the Boogaloo. Number one thing is understanding and practicing the N.A.P. And so I kind of think that's what helped solidify me more into the movement, is understanding that the non-aggression principle is more of a liberty aim than like pretty much any of the other goals for the Boogaloo, because of the simple fact that it's recognizing not to be the aggressor in certain situations and to help prevent, loss of life in a situation where it is definitely not necessary.
And the non-aggression principle also doesn't mean violence. It also means when you're getting into heated arguments or discussions with other people who disagree with you online or in real life. It's one of the big things that Spike Cohen is always preaching when when we're talking to other people who are non-libertarians or that don't support the Boog. Essentially, if you can open yourself up to compassion with other people and give them a perspective that they understand, and you're not yelling at them, you would always take the higher ground and always come out better. If not, if you can't convince them, you would make yourself look good amongst other people who will be reading that.
There's a lot of that online, especially now. People who don't agree with each other, the first thing they go to is insulting your beliefs, insulting your intelligence based on just not following the same principles, and that's doing nothing right now but pulling us all further apart.
And the thing is too, that's where a lot of like the infighting comes from, I think, within like even just the Libertarian Party as well, especially when there are kind of controversial and heated issues that happen, especially more recently, that have kind of pretty much seem to have divided our community. A couple prime examples being Garrett Foster and Kyle Rittenhouse, were definitely two scenarios in which, there were opportunities for the non-aggression principle, and, one or the other side had violated it. And then, it filtered down through the libertarian community, the Boogaloo community, and everything, and how people would stand and defend. I mean, and some people would outright violate it online or even in person, talking about it, trying to defend or, go after the person that they felt was responsible or felt was in the right or wrong.
And it's not even like they would go after the person responsible. They would just tie the group immediately. Like, I remember the whole Kyle Rittenhouse, the one, everything was just starting to break out. Immediately, people were already claiming that he was related to the boys, that they all planned this and all this other stuff. But as soon as evidence started coming out that pretty much debunked all that, everybody just started shifting their focus on other things, just propagandizing it by either making an anti-gun thing or making it an alt-right thing, and just basically trying to shift it to their advantage.
The biggest one I saw on that was that, his Facebook profile was full of thin blue line. He brought this gun from home over state lines, and he planned to do all this. And there, even after evidence showing the opposite is out, there's still people holding on that. There's still a lot of arguments about that.
Well, and not only that, too, I mean, would also seem to divide the communities and everything like that as well was just that, I mean, if you think about it, a lot of people were bringing up about how, oh, well, he was 17 and he crossed state lines, and, but then these are also the same people that are, 100% pro 2A and railing on that, and they're just sounding hypocritical and everything. But, I think we should definitely get down to the nitty gritty on that and the meat and potatoes. And, and I know people may look at us and think that we have an unpopular opinion about it, but basically I know for me personally, I've really dug through and really looked through the facts and everything presented. I mean, I read left-wing articles, I read right-wing articles, and I read everything as far as just even the evidence presented and all the state laws and stuff to go with it, and this is, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like this is definitely going to be a fun conversation to be having.
Yep.
Oh, definitely.
Agreed.
Yeah, like one of the things with the whole Kyle Rittenhouse situation is like everybody's saying that he was the aggressor. He was the one charging people with the gun when there's video evidence of him like being confronted. Him and a bunch of other militia guys were being confronted at a gas station after they put out a fire that the protesters were setting up. They were just there to defend their stuff, but the protesters were out there trying to light a gas station on fire. Who's the aggressor here?
Well, and that's the thing, me, I was born and I lived in Kenosha. So, I mean, that whole scenario hit me a little personally. And so I had family that was actually in the area. And I actually had one family member in particular who was at the gas station, and I was being told by them, and this was actually even before I even knew that anything had happened from the news. I was told, through conversation first, hey, did you see what happened? You should check the news. I was there at this gas station, read the articles, watch the videos, come back and talk to me. And so I did, and I was talking to them, and, they were saying that, a lot of like how it all started was everybody was getting heated. So nobody could really pinpoint like how somebody got mad right away. But what can actually be started for certain was that there were individuals there who have eventually been identified as either targets of Kyle Rittenhouse or victims, or he was a victim of them, however you want to look at it in that scenario. They were the ones responsible for trying to light a dumpster on fire, and Kyle Rittenhouse was actually seen going and putting that fire out. And so there's been speculation that was probably kind of like the first thing that had started all of everything, when you start to see the initial video at the gas station where you've got that bald pedophile standing there, daring them to shoot him. So in my opinion, I think that's kind of like right there, the first start of the violation of the non-aggression principle right there. Not that that's actually kind of necessarily been written. I've read it somewhere. I couldn't find the source to cite it again. But this is just off of personal conversation with somebody who was there. So right there, I kind of think is the beginning of the violation of the non-aggression principle.
And a fun fact about the gas station thing, there was a guy who is, I don't know if it was, apparently he is a boot boy, but he's kind of like flying solo, whatever it was. But in that video of the confrontation, you can see him pulling Kyle away from the situation, where we don't know if Kyle said something to provoke them or something, but that just proves that the boy that was there was actually trying to de-escalate things before the cops came in there and split up the whole groups and somehow ended up with Kyle being on his own, which we all know what happened after that.
Yeah, when Joseph Rosenbaum, I believe was his name, got in his face, yeah, he grabbed him by the backpack, pulled him away, and I can't remember what he said on camera, but that was about the end of the frame. And the next thing you see on video is Kyle being chased across the parking lot and that bag being thrown that everybody thought was a Molotov at first until we started seeing that bag in the next frame.
That I think that was like already like 10 or maybe like 10 minutes after that whole confrontation happened. It wasn't really immediately. So we still don't know exactly what happened in between when the group split up. It's when the rioters, basically the violent rioters, were basically singled out Kyle and just went after him.
Well, and the thing is too, what people don't understand in that kind of a scenario, when you start to reach that fight or flight situation, when you are running away, especially after the separation, that is a scary time, whether you are armed or not, and you have people that you have just upset and pissed off, and now they are chasing after you. That's a very scary situation, especially being a 17-year-old kid at that. And, this is where you've left the gas station now, where there's been, kind of conflicting words, that the police pushed them away from that area. Kyle Rittenhouse got separated. There hasn't been anything solid that I've read as to what exactly happened after the gas station incident leading into the, where he was running into the parking lot by himself. But that is a scary situation for a 17-year-old kid to be put into, to have something thrown, and then you can see a muzzle flash in the corner of the screen, and then you hear obviously hear the gunshot, and then, what is this kid supposed to think? Something just got thrown. Did the guy throw it so he could grab his gun on a waistband? Did he have a gun? What's going on? Did he just get shot at? At that point, he turns around to get ready to fire. And that's another scenario where now it's kind of hard to figure out who's violating the N.A.P. then again. Is Joseph Rosenbaum being responsible since he threw something and he's chasing? In my opinion, absolutely. Especially with the video evidence and even witness testimony that's been put in the police report, that yes, Kyle Rittenhouse once again was being aggressed, and he turned around and did pretty much what I'm willing to bet you 99% of gun owners would do: turn around and stand their ground, especially being cornered between cars.
No, and like imagine if a mental exercise I always do is like try and flip the perspectives, to either take their perspective, see how they feel, or what if it was the Joseph Rosenbaum was the one actually being chased by Kyle. Like, but Joseph actually had the gun and Kyle was not, or something like that. And like, regardless of the whole situation, like the guy with the gun was running away from somebody who did not have a gun, and Joseph was basically already the victor. He already got the ego stroking, like you won. Like, you chased the guy away with a gun without a gun. You just got some bigger balls than most other people in the world have to. You don't have, like, he didn't have to continue to chase him, and unfortunately he lost his life, even though it did came out that he was a pedophile. But that's another thing.
Because I can honestly admit, I'm not chasing a guy with a rifle on foot alone.
Yeah, for real. It's like who the fuck does that?
But
Well,
at the end of the day, and I'm sure everybody here and any gun owners listening would agree, someone attempting to disarm you who is already shown to be hostile towards you is a significant threat. There was a reporter on scene said that he didn't have his camera. It was the guy that testified for the police report you mentioned earlier that said Joseph reached for his gun. He attempted to disarm him. That is a threat. There's no real way around that. Kyle ran, Joseph chased, tried to disarm him.
Like,
yeah.
what if?
And here's my thing, and here's my take on that. I do want to kind of take a step back and think about something, that kind of Boogie brought up. That's actually a really good point, is, thinking from the opposite perspective, trying to be unbiased and think down the line and try not to have, this binary thinking of already, okay, this happened. Kyle Rittenhouse defended himself. Here's where, excuse me, I'm trying to think about, like how Boogie's saying, think about from the other perspective. This guy's got brass balls that, that he has trouble putting pants on in the morning because of the simple fact he's chasing a kid down with a gun while he's unarmed. I also, before I really actually dug so deep into this, I was questioning, what exactly was it that was said that somebody loses all inhibition of self-preservation and chases somebody with a gun? What could have been said or have been escalated, though, at that point that guy lost all common sense? It was just like, I forgot this guy's got a gun. I'm going to go chase after him. I'm going to go get that gun from him. Like, that kid's not going to turn around and put one right in your thigh, your back, your head, So.
I mean, I honestly feel that whatever that escalating moment was probably before that first video when Joseph was seen approaching him yelling, "Shoot me, shoot me." Dude's red in the face. He's obviously very mad at that point. Whatever the initial escalation was had to have been before that moment.
Maybe it was little man syndrome.
I mean, possible.
Little man
it really
syndrome.
is.
I'll fuck
That
but
that is very possible. I've seen a lot of people take little man syndrome that far before.
I mean, what was Joseph Rosenbaum? All of 5'4"? I mean, he was
Something
shorter
like
than
that.
Kyle Rittenhouse, and Kyle Rittenhouse was what?
It
5'6",
was one of those
5'7", 5'8"?
Like I know we shouldn't be height shaming or anything like that, but like
No.
when you're watching a video of like, not even just like the confrontation video, but just like I've seen a lot of street fight videos, and usually the ones with the shorter guys are usually the ones getting more extra hyped up. It's just a thing, but like it only just like, all right, he's obviously the more aggressive one, like saying all this shit, like saying like shoot me N-word, like dude, like calm down, like. You can even look around the background, like people are just like, dude, what the fuck did you just say? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. No, hold on. Let us move away from him before you start shooting him like he asked, okay?
Yeah. Let's see. Joseph Rosenbaum, height 5'3", 165 pounds. So yeah, he's shorter than I am, and I'm 5'5", and I fall right into what you just said. When I used to fight a lot when I was younger in school, I mean, I'd get hyped, I'd get excited. Something about being small
and like Kevin Hart says,
strong is cocky.
I'm gonna pop the trunk on your bitch ass.
And if you guys ever looked at his, you know how like his record was posted up, and that's how people discovered he was a sex offender.
Yes.
There's a whole other sketchy situation with that whole thing that, you can't find on the website. But if you look down the line of his adolescence years, he was already a problem child to begin with, already like getting into fights and a bunch of other bullshit.
The record, I actually looked it up personally. Because the first place I looked was Watchdog. They have a website that has an interactive map, shows you color-coded pins based on the crime. I tried to run his name through it. His name popped up and his picture popped up, and it had him listed, but it showed nothing as far as convictions.
Yeah. I was gonna say
They were on the Arizona Department of Corrections or whatever website that was. I had looked it up there and found it there. Apparently, he was in trouble in Arizona.
Well, what state was it exactly? And I forget.
It was Arizona.
Okay, yeah, because I know that's where it really started to come out when people found him, that he was actually
still
a
on the
kitty
Arizona
diddler.
website. I'm actually looking at the link right now.
Yeah, that's where I got his height from, was the Wisconsin Department of Corrections Sex Offender Registry.
Disciplinary infractions, disobey verbal warnings, assault on staff, arson, disrespect, tampering, disobeying order, possession of a manufactured weapon, assault on staff, throwing substances. Like, dude, what are you doing?
So I mean, and that's the thing. So I mean, maybe at the end of the day, it's not that there was something that led up to him losing common sense. It might have just been more he was trying to keep a hold of his street cred, because likely, I mean, with some of the stuff I was being told, by the family member on site, was saying, that there was definitely a lot of insults and stuff being thrown back and forth, and kind of, from what I've also heard too, is like the Boog boys were definitely de-escalating, and you definitely see that at the end of the video. You got guys trying to get pulled away, especially from like a heated situation and stuff, and and so it's just kind of one of them things like, hey, no, I'm not done with you yet. Like, you just shamed me, stopped me from burning this dumpster. I look stupid in front of my friends, and now you're standing here with a firearm. Like, I don't think you've got the balls to do what you're here to say you're going to do. So, and that's where I think possibly that all might have led into where he's chasing. And now Kyle is faced with the choice of drawing down and firing, or allowing a potential attack where Kyle may lose his life. From now that we also know this guy's got a violent criminal history with weapons and things like that, which, I mean, at the time we didn't know. We're still ignorant of everything that's gone on. So, but so yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse is cornered. He has to make the choice to defend his life. He pulls the trigger. Rosenbaum hits the ground. It's night pedophile, and Kyle gets on the phone and tries to inform somebody. And then, even so, the crowd, and this is kind of where it gets tough, because in that scenario, you have now where you have one person who has had eyes on that joined the chase of what had happened. And then you've also got a whole crowd and a whole different dynamic of people who have no understanding of what led to this. All they know now is one of these armed kids just shot and potentially killed somebody, and now he's running away. So they don't have the understanding of what happened. So this is kind of where it gets tough to try and classify about a violation of a N.A.P. until the fact when Kyle runs away, and then he gets hit in the head, his hat comes off, and then somebody comes up and hits him with a skateboard after he falls. At that rate, are we going to classify that as like a violation of the N.A.P., or are we going to classify that as maybe they just were ignorant of the situation?
Truth be told, I feel like it's more ignorance of the situation, because, like you said, none of them, or the majority of them, most likely did not see exactly what happened. At the same time, there were a lot of people you could hear in some of the videos yelling about, oh, he's chasing that guy, oh, he's got a gun. So there were a lot of people that saw it and did nothing to stop any part of it from happening.
But there's also the point that a friend of mine pointed this out. Like, the people that were either in the know, they saw the gun. If you're smart, you're not going to go fuck with somebody with the gun, especially if they're running away and they might have done something really, really bad or not. Who knows?
Especially if they're being said to have shot someone.
There was already cameras everywhere. He was not getting away. If he did, so people that didn't want to, that decided to, get some balls of steel and decided to go after him for some street cred, that was all their choice, and they decided to be the aggressors at that point. And fortunately, one did lose another person lost their life, and another person got some permanent damage on their arm. And if they would have just like let them, you could have tried to stop him, but like not try to like, try and take his gun or hit him with like a crowbar or something. But the dude pulled out a gun, and what do you expect? Like, and another thing to consider too is that you already have a crowd of protesters that are already supporting Black Lives Matter, which a lot of us support the movement. We just don't support the organization. But a lot of people were already propagandized or misinformed, thinking that the Boogaloo Boys were alt-right, which definitely not the case if you actually go talk to them. But a lot of people see that, and they see a kid with a gun, and they saw people at the gas stations. They're at the protest, and they're all spreading like, "Oh, those are Boog Boys. They're here to cause trouble." Blah blah blah. And next thing you know, whatever happened between when Kyle was split and Joseph decided, and the group decided to go after him, like it has been proven numerous times that Antifa / BLM, like extremists, like the violent ones, not the regular protesters, but the violent ones, are the ones spreading out this misinformation about us. They're out there trying to paint us the bad guys when we're out there just want to protect our community. We also want people to express how they feel about the police, but they don't have to express it with violence. They don't have to go destroy people's property. They don't have to, go light up a trash little dumpster fire on fire and try and light up a gas station, which caused all this clusterfuck to happen.
Yep. There was actually a interview earlier on in the night too with one of the guys at the gas station that was basically saying, yo, we don't care what you do. Don't just don't harm these innocent people around you. This guy that owns this gas station, he could be out there with you right now. Tear down that lamppost right there. That's the city. So you're after the city. Wouldn't be my cup of tea, but, just target your target. Don't target the innocents around that had nothing to do with what happened.
And, like, I get this point, being, like, from the West Coast, so I have to deal with a lot of, like, my left-leaning friends, and I have voted for Bernie Sanders before and a lot of, like, non-corrupt politicians, essentially. But a lot of my left-leaning friends would start mentioning, like, well, these businesses have insurance. Well, here's the problem with that. They may have insurance. Some may have insurance, some may not. But
they don't cover riots.
Went on fire. Your building went on fire. Yeah, they don't cover riots. Your building just got lit up on fire, and now the cost for demolition and removal and rebuilding is more than what the policy actually covers. So it didn't even matter. They were screwed. Now they're out of business.
And not only that, you got to think, this is some of these people's livelihoods too that have gone into it, and we talk definitely, especially within the libertarian community, the liberty community, about, especially being as constitutional as possible, like even like reading through the Declaration of Independence and stuff like that, and citing life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. You think about it. Some of these people put, years upon years. You've got schooling, you've got the time that they took to save this money to go into this business and everything else like that. And then something like this happens, and now all of a sudden the owner of the business goes upside down. Now their livelihood is gone. Their way to put food on the table is gone. At the end of the day, they owe more money than what they should have. And what about if they, were still paying on a mortgage on the place or whatever? Then they have to file for bankruptcy. And then, and it's a whole cascading event that, takes place, that it's more than just a business.
Don't forget
it's
the
now
employees too.
Exactly. There are a lot of people. It's a ripple effect. You throw a rock in a pond, and then, it depends on the size stone, but each size stone you have that you throw into the water still has a rippling effect that will reach the edge. It doesn't matter. No, I'm not advocating, valuing property or a business more than human life, but I am advocating for the fact that people need to think about why people get so upset and frustrated and angry, and we're standing there with rifles to begin with.
Is there's one thing a lot of people aren't really understanding about that's what you just said. They're basing a lot of the company should support us on one of the biggest super center, or one of the first big super centers that got destroyed, that Target, where their owners came out and said, oh, well, we support the movement, we'll replace everything, whatever. But somebody like Target, a nationwide corporation, they can afford to replace everything without the insurance. They're not one of these mom and pop owners that, like the guy I used to work for in a restaurant here was a local business, and he relied on that, still living check to check to take care of his family while owning the business. If he had lost that business, he would have nothing. His whole family worked there, and everybody else who worked there were all, just barely making it by. Without that building, all of our lives would have been ruined.
Well, and here's the thing from when I lived in Kenosha. What I can say about the dynamic of that town, because I just moved there from in 2016 here to Ohio. I mean, because I've got family there because of little family history. My family worked at the AMC plant right on 60th. And so when that plant, had transferred over to Chrysler and they sent a bunch of guys to Perrysburg, Ohio. I don't live anywhere near there, but there was a Jeep plant in Perrysburg. A lot of my family got shifted over that way. And from there, we branched out and moved throughout Ohio. But the dynamic of Kenosha is generally, it's not a small town. I would say it's a small city. And there is still enough compassion within the people in the community there that they care a lot about everything. I mean, hence that's why the whole thing with the Kenosha Guard was started. So when you've got somebody like Kyle Rittenhouse, where he's from Illinois, which being in Kenosha, which is like just right across the border from Illinois. Yeah, we talk shit about people from Illinois all the time and, run our mouth. But at the same time, when you work in Kenosha, you are kind of welcomed into the community. And that's one of the things is this kid had just got done working as a lifeguard and, was coming back to defend everything because obviously this guy has friends within Kenosha and stuff like that. He's got contacts and everything else like that. And he wanted to make a difference, and protect something and help people, which is why he was carrying an aid kit to begin with as well. So it's not like he went there with intent to go and start mowing protesters down. He went there because a lot of these people's livelihoods were at stake because of all the burnings and the businesses being broken into and looted. And I mean, hell, that same night, I think, or maybe the night before, a 70-year-old man got busted in the face and got his jaw broken. I was
going to mention that.
Seriously, come on, why are these people standing there with rifles? That's why, So right off the rip, how can you be upset with Kyle Rittenhouse for standing in a community that he works in and knows people and is defending a business, especially, I think, from the night before the video was where the 70-year-old man gets his jaw broken standing outside of his business, protecting everything that this guy worked for.
With a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
Don't forget, too, a lot of these businesses are already struggling because of COVID.
Yes, that's a very valid point.
You don't need to just, they're already knocked out. You don't need to kick them in the face like those Antifa guys did with that one dude over in Portland. He was already down. What, no need to overkill.
And
we're all struggling.
And that's what rolls into, especially kind of on the propaganda end of things, where we, as the Boogaloo community, kind of get negative attention, from the media. I mean, think about from the aspect too, where you're seeing on CNN and you're seeing on all the left wing sites of all these peaceful protesters with a fire here and maybe a riot there. Then you watch Fox News and then you've got the videos of the 70-year-old dude getting busted in the mouth with a fire extinguisher, and you've got a dude in Portland getting kicked, and he's running away from people and he gets punched and then beaten, savagely on the ground, and then left to lay there. Nobody knew if he was dead or not. Nobody knew if he was dying. He was just left there. And so, it's how can you be upset that somebody like Kyle Rittenhouse is going to be in defense of himself? And then when you roll into some of the rest of the video, where he gets hit in the head with a skateboard, you gotta, and I'm going to go back to the N.A.P, you got a clear violation of it when the last guy that he shoots presents himself as if, hey, look, I'm not messing with you. And he's got a firearm in his hand. and then he starts at him like he's getting ready to engage again and take the rifle.
And
How can you be upset?
That false surrender when Kyle first put him in his sights, where he jumped back with his hands up. Kyle moves the rifle away, and then he goes back forward before he comes back and shoots him in the elbow or in the bicep.
So, in my opinion, here's what I think for sure. And what I'm going to say with all evidence presented, the videos and the testimony and everything like that against, I mean, even the court case that just came out, and then even now the lawyers that for Kyle Rittenhouse that made a video, who violated the N.A.P in this situation? And I think the answer is crystal clear. I think everybody who was involved, whether they were trying to chase down an armed person or not, if they were aware of the situation of who Kyle shot, why Kyle shot, and everything like that, why he was there with a gun, why he was defending a gas station, all those events, everybody else that was involved, that especially the ones that he shot, they were all in clear violation of the N.A.P. And that needs to be one of those things like, yes, you can sit there and have non-binary thinking and say, yes, no, he should not have been in Kenosha, or he was underage, he shouldn't have had a firearm, or whatever. At the end of the day, if that guy was not 17 years old, he was 18 and legally able to carry a firearm, I definitely 100% will back Kyle Rittenhouse in this scenario. I don't give a shit if he's back the blue or not. He defended his life, which is what we advocate for. Life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness.
At the end of the day, your ideals don't really matter. You still have those same rights as we do and everybody else does. And regardless of belief, we've got to back that right.
Well, and the thing is, too, I was 17 years old when I joined the service and was carrying an M4 and shooting the 240 Bravo and, and all of that, the heavy equipment and stuff that I operated. I turned 18 while I was in basic training, so I had already had experience with a lot of this stuff at the age of 17 before I turned 18. So if I could do that with parental consent, so can, why couldn't Kyle Rittenhouse? He was dropped off, by his mom. So.
Yeah. And another thing that, like, a lot of people don't really, people do talk about it, but this falls for Antifa, the Proud Boys, and any of those crazy groups that are usually found at protests. They always provoke each other all the time so they can either not be the ones that shoot first. So there is already that high chance that this group was already trying to provoke Kyle so that he can shoot first, which eventually had to, but to push him to that point, and then they can push their agenda or whatever the heck they want to do with that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and especially to, kind of continue with the N.A.P. What about Garrett Foster? What about that scenario? I personally think that Kyle Rittenhouse is crystal clear. But what about Garrett Foster? That's definitely a huge issue that tore us apart.
Yeah, that's a weird one too, because like, what was the details? The guy that shot Garrett, he was dropping off a customer from Uber or whatever across the street, and he claims that his GPS told him to go right into the corner. He did run a light and cut right into them, going right into the protesters. But then that's when Garrett was walking with his wife, or not walking, but like pushing his wife's wheelchair, and the car approaches the crowd. Looks like he was like, who knows if there was some words exchanged or whatever. I don't know much about that detail, but
I honestly don't feel like there were words exchanged, just based on the dash cam video. There's a dash cam video showing the intersection where the guy turned right through the light and into the crowd. The time between that pulling in and the shots fired, the video has no audio, but from the time to there to the people fleeing the scene, it's literally like less than 5 seconds from when his car comes to a complete stop.
Well, and the thing is too, I think at that moment too, I think it's kind of key to really discuss and talk about the rifle positioning that Garrett Foster walked up with as well.
It's known that he was low ready for sure, right? It was always low ready.
Yes.
Yeah,
well,
he had it on a sling. In most pictures, he had it on a sling, had his hand just resting on the gun while he had his phone in his other hand. The videos look like he's in that same position walking up to the car if you watched it in slow motion. You can see the pistol coming out and the rifle never raised until you can see the muzzle flash. And the only time the rifle actually raised that I could make out was as Garrett was falling backwards.
Well, and see, and that's one thing too. Kind of like the reason I brought up with my time in service is that the rifle carrying positions are definitely key because of the simple fact that, like, say, if you have to march in formation, whatever, even being ready to react to contact, all of your positioning matters. And this Garrett Foster walked up, with his muzzle pointed at the ground, and yes, his hand was on the pistol grip, or the grip of his AK-47, and it's on a sling around his shoulder. The rifle isn't even tucked into his shoulder. That's the thing. It's across his chest. If, especially being in the service, like the Uber driver, I forget the sergeant's name, but he was active duty service out of Fort Hood, and also having been to Afghanistan as well, which rules of engagement, what I've always been taught is when you see people over there, they're likely going to be carrying AK-47s, RPGs, whatever. You're not allowed to engage until they are actively engaging you. And that's the whole big reason why we kind of hit on rifle positioning and stuff like that, is because you have to be able to identify your target and understand what they are going to do, whether or not, and you have to be able to react in a split-second scenario. So Garrett Foster, after this sergeant drives into the crowd of people, comes walking up to the crowd. At this point, it's speculation of what was going to transpire after that. Is he going to talk to him, say, hey, what the hell's wrong with you? Or is he going to be aggressive with him? Not sure. Was not enough time for that to even occur. He's muzzled to the floor, rifle across his chest, buttstock not even in his shoulder. That is a non-aggressive stance. To an outside eye who does not have very much experience with firearms, rifle positioning, or being able to be in a ready position, Garrett Foster wasn't even in a ready position. He was in a carry position is where he was. And so this sergeant, I'm presumably going to understand that he has had some of the same training that I did. Why would he automatically assume that Garrett Foster is the threat? There is not a weapon that's being pointed at him. It's not even tucked into the shoulder, and it's across his chest. That's where I kind of struggle with the whole argument of Garrett Foster was getting ready to fire at him.
Like, and how do we know if the driver was actually looking to actually shoot people? Like, the dude, like, it could have taken a couple people started banging on the car or like threatening to smash his window, and then boom, excuse to shoot somebody. I felt threatened, and he probably would have got away with it. But like with Kyle, it's like he's
a victim of opportunity.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if you've ever been like in like protest crowds and stuff like that, where you kind of like, or any group setting in general, like where you kind of feel like the whole vibe changes. You know what I'm saying? Like something like, you're being watched, or something like ominous, and it's like something's weird in the air. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't surprise me if Garrett was just walking with his people, and you see that car coming in, and everybody suddenly is like focusing on the car, like, ooh, what's this guy's deal? And suddenly, like everybody's already antsed up, already has hella anxiety, and then who knows, maybe the driver's feeling the same exact thing, sees a guy with can't identify if it's a law enforcement or anything, sees a guy walking up with a gun, and all right, I gotta defend myself, boom, boom.
And because of the COVID, and a lot of people are saying, not only did he have the gun, he had his face covered because he had that neck
Yeah.
gaiter, I believe it was,
I mean,
covering from
he
his
was
eyes down.
being responsible, whatever. But it's probably a good
Yeah.
idea to cover your face at protests anyways because of, doxing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely true. But I was bringing that up specifically because I've seen a lot of people in the military defending the shooter. They're talking about, he's walking up with an AK, he has a mask on, they don't know who he is. All they know is they just, or they're there and there's a guy with an AK walking at their door.
Yeah,
But at the
and
same time, you can see from the dash cam video, with the amount of foot traffic in the intersection that he ran the red light to go through, because the car in the dash cam had the green light. So the guy turning right had red. With the amount of foot traffic going through that intersection, there's no way you could have thought that, oh, this is everybody. There's nobody else around this corner.
well, and that's the thing too. I mean, this goes back to what Boogie was saying. Try to empathize, put yourself in the other position. I especially would be thinking about that scenario if I'm in what appears to be a hot zone that I just rolled myself into, and I see somebody with their face covered walking up with their rifle, and they appear to be angry. How would I react? I mean, and that's where the kind of details get muddied, because in certain aspects of the video you can see that there's not this crowd that swarmed this guy's car and beaten on the hood like he claimed. In fact, that people were just walking up to him when he sticks his pistol out the window and you see the muzzle flash and then Garrett fall. And
Yeah,
and that's where it's like kind of hard, because it's like, but I mean, it's based on perspective. I mean, did he really feel like his life was being threatened, or is it just a matter of when you dig into the guy's social media after the fact and you're like, well, he
He,
was kind of out for blood based on his
yeah,
posts and stuff,
he said he wanted to run people over. And, I've seen a lot of people in military and active military saying like, oh, if I see protesters blocking the road, we're going to run them over, which that's also a violation of non-aggression principle. But would it also be a violation for the protesters that are blocking the road? Because you could actively be putting other people in danger, say if like an ambulance trying to go through or something. Like,
yeah. Or like
Now,
if I'm in that crowd being blocked by a car, I have a 2-year-old. I have no AC in my daily driver in the middle of the Alabama summer. That puts my son in risk.
yeah, that's also a fair point as well. I mean,
Like,
that's for like the empathizing scenarios. I mean, yeah, I definitely could see that, but I mean, is that going to be something that you drive into a crowd of people and you see somebody walk up to you with a rifle? I mean, what is your immediate thought going to be? I mean, are you going to assess like where the rifle positioning is? Are you going to assess body language, or are you just going to see that he's got a rifle and you're in a hot car and in a crowd of people who are pissed because you drove your car through them,
I
and then are
mean,
you just going to reactively fire?
I'm kind of a dick when it comes to traffic safety stuff, and I practice what I preach. Had I personally been in that situation, I would have followed the law that gives pedestrians the right of way when you're at a red light, and I probably never would have gone through that intersection to begin with, which would have made that whole situation moot, never would have existed.
So, well,
So from a technical standpoint, he would have been the first one to do something wrong because, yeah, you can right turn on red, but you still have to yield for that turn. And at a red light, pedestrian traffic has right of way.
yeah, no, and I agree with that. And I mean, I'm definitely, I definitely don't want to, beat the whole Garrett Foster thing to death, but because, that's something that there's been enough information presented. I certainly feel like the Army sergeant was if anything, I could say was almost in a direct violation of the non-aggression principle, all the way around. I mean, because in technicality, I mean, you didn't even really see actual aggression from the crowd, whether it was, people throwing things, beating on the hood. I mean, even advancing in an aggressive manner. I mean, because from the videos I've seen, for sure, like they're just walking up, and it kind of seems confusing because the guy blows into a crowd of people,
And then just stops.
and then just stops and then starts firing.
I
So
mean, it looks like from seeing all the videos, it looks like he was going there to start something. He went through the red light, failed to yield, turned into the crowd, and Garrett Foster was right there. He just happened to pull up to the perfect target because now there's a man armed walking up to my car.
and that's
If
where
I'm going
I
to
bring
shoot
up.
anybody, this is the guy that I'm going to be most likely to get away with.
Well, and that's the thing, and that's where I also bring up too with the guy's, service record, is given the fact that he had already made a deployment to Afghanistan, so he now has more knowledge, understanding, and in a way you would think a psychological understanding of a poor crowd situation or scenario that could turn violent very, very quickly. He has more of an understanding of that than your average Joe. I mean, had this guy, in my opinion, had this guy just been an Uber driver that was, no active duty experience, no combat experience, deployment experience, whatever you want to call it, if he had rolled into that situation and had a guy with a rifle come walking up to him, I think I could understand and maybe justify and sympathize with the driver more. But given that the fact was an active duty E5 sergeant out of Fort Hood who had been on a deployment to Afghanistan, and I know some of the training personally that he's gone through, I can't get behind the argument that the E5 was not the aggressor and was not the one in violation of the N.A.P. I just cannot. I can't get behind that argument. That for me, I think it's 100% that he was in violation, and I don't think Garrett Foster really was at fault on much. I mean, this is one of those things I think could be a black and white thing. I mean, so I'm curious to see what kind of comes out of this at the end of the day, and see what the jury decides.
One other point I would point out was just like aggressive crowds and being in cars and stuff, which kind of ties into the non-aggression principle. It's like, what if Garrett was never there? If there was no other people with a gun that gave the dude an excuse to shoot? What if the guy ended up shooting people because the crowd ended up surrounding the car and beating on him? Well, like the protesters, especially the more aggressive, more like hyped up ones, like kind of like the Joseph Rosenbaum energy type guys, started banging on the hood, and then the dude gets shot because he's being aggressive and violent to the crowd. Well, if they were following the N.A.P, they would have never have to worry. They would have never had been shot. So like, imagine like if I've seen a video of like in California where they shut down a freeway and protesters started going like, "Oh, honk your horn if your Black Lives Matter." And obviously there was a mom that started like, "No, I do not support it." And the crowd started being aggressive, surrounding the car. Guess who was inside the car? The mom's two kids. Now those two kids are going to have that memory of people banging on their cars in some scary moment in the freeway. And now forever they're going to have that bad image about BLM and about what they're really preaching about. Like,
I've seen a lot of bad coming out of the blocking traffic too. There was one group, I don't remember where it was. I want to say it was Texas. I'm real big into the car community. There's one car that everybody makes fun of more than any other about losing control and going into crowds. So Ford Mustang. So as it turns out, if people walk in front of your Ford Mustang and you slam on the brakes going interstate speed, it is just as hard to control slamming on your brakes as it is slamming the gas. So these people walked out in front of the car known as the crowd killer. And as it was going interstate speeds on the interstate, jumped in front of it, then attacked him for hitting them after they jumped in front of him. So he speeds off, and then more people jump in front of him. And they're making him out to be the person in the wrong in that situation. I really wish I could remember that guy's name.
No, I think I know what scenario you're talking about, but I mean,
because there were people jumping on his hood and yelling at him, and the dude's got his hands up. The driver's freaking out. He didn't want to hit somebody. And now he's got people literally jumping and sitting on his car. I think one guy grabbed for his door handle, and I mean, that's kind of threatening. Especially for your...
It's threatening, but I mean, in
it's
reality,
intimidating.
Yes, it's more intimidating.
Would be a better word.
Because yes, that's actually better. It's more intimidating because I don't think that there is an actual absolute threat. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, you getting your car beat on, destroyed, and everything else like that, it's frustrating. And that goes back to the conversation of, oh, well, insurance companies can just take care of it and everything. But I mean, yeah, in that scenario, it becomes really hard because, especially like if you're armed too, you sit there and you're trying to think, when do I need to use deadly force to defend myself? I mean, is it when that door handle's being pulled on, or do I wait until a window is broken, or do I have to wait until a weapon is being pointed, or like Garrett Foster, do I wait until somebody walks up with a weapon? And it just, I don't know. It's hard because it's all about assessing your situation, understanding body language, and seeing where you are. And I definitely think too, your experience level is going to most certainly play into that, and understanding and reading the crowd and what can happen. And that's, that's just why I don't think Garrett Foster really, his death obviously is unfortunate. I believe it should have been avoided. Yes, it should have been avoided. And I think that's a situation that I don't think Garrett Foster was violating the N.A.P. in that. I think it was the active duty sergeant from Fort Hood.
I agree. Another, just a quick point to point out too is when you have people who are not experienced with those kind of situations or can't really handle pressure very well, and you're in the car and see protesters pull out a gun, shoot because you're scared. Remember the St. Louis couple that had protesters up in their lawn and they came out with guns being all aggressive?
Have you seen their holiday card?
That holiday card is gold.
That's a prime example, actually. I mean, and you know what though? How they reacted, although they were flagging the hell out of each other, nobody got shot.
Yeah, but you're provoking. They're getting provoked. Now they're provoking each other, and they're just escalating the situation. And luckily, nobody got shot. But their gun owners are trying to defend themselves because they don't know what this crowd's going to do. Maybe the first thing is to do is to go inside your house, maybe go on top of your balcony of your nice Scarface type house, maybe so you can at least have an advantage and not be up close with these protesters trying to act like Rambo and shit. And because of all that situation, they got their guns taken away, which is fucked up. But, you were acting a fucking fool.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, that's tough. I mean, you think about it, they became a joke across all platforms across both sides of the aisle, north
Everybody
and
was
south.
roasting them.
Yeah, in the libertarian community and liberty community, I think we definitely side with them much, much more. And, hey, yeah, you were defending what was yours. You had your weapons taken from you. That's wrong. You shouldn't have been put in that scenario, and then you've got like the right side of the aisle, obviously, being, well, they should have just shot, but you should have shot them, and then you've got the left side that wants to sit and say, look at these fools, it would have been very easy to overrun them in no time. What were they really defending then at that point? They were exposed. They were inexperienced. They were flagging themselves. Hell, one of them, I can't remember. I think it was the wife was pointing the pistol at her husband, and he had to push the pistol down, or maybe it was him with the AR-15. Whatever the case was,
they were breaking all types of rules.
I think it was the wife. She had her finger on the trigger for a lot of that situation.
So that's definitely an inexperienced type scenario, and honestly, it's just that's a tough one to call. I do agree with you. They could have definitely picked a better stance for better cover and concealment and defense and protection. But at the same time, maybe their goal was just to be a show of force,
Yeah, they also, at the same time, I can understand that they wanted to be out there and show that if you keep advancing on our property, we will defend it. Which would be the only reason I could think of for them to be out on the front like that.
Well,
there were also pictures of their front gate destroyed after.
It wasn't their front gate, but it was the front gate to the community. I think it was like a walking one, like a pedestrian one, I think.
Okay.
But I've heard two things: that apparently somebody let them in, and then they destroyed the gate either way. So it didn't really matter. There was still trespassing in private property. It wasn't the families or the St. Louis couple's family, but it was the whole community's private entrance.
Even if they were let into the neighborhood, they still were not given permission to go on that person's private property.
Yeah. Plus, this probably wasn't a good idea for the couple to, be out in their balcony, not expect a protest, drinking mimosas, and next thing you know, a crowd shows up and they pull out their guns and start acting like idiots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely tell they were a little tipsy. You saw the intensities in her eyes when she was pointing that gun. Like, holy shit.
I think they went out there and were waiting for an aggressive scenario to progress so that way they could go out there and just start stacking bodies.
I heard part of the reason why that protest group decided to go into that neighborhood was because the mayor decided to read out addresses and basically doxing the protesters that were fucking up shit. And they didn't like that. And they're like, well, we're going to go to you. I'm like, all right. So, again, there's another violation of the non-aggression principle. The mayor doxing people. Don't dox people. Doxing is not cool. It doesn't matter if you disagree with them or not. Don't fucking do it.
If they're going there for the mayor, go there for the mayor. Don't involve the other just random innocent bystanders in your issue. The people who had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I understand that. But it's just what likely could have been the scenario is, who works with the mayor, who has contact with the mayor. And if I remember correctly, was that even the same neighborhood that the mayor lived in as well? I kind of think
maybe it was a long march. They had a whole.
Yeah.
I think they actually split off. They were just going to continue on the main street, and then they decided to turn into the private neighborhood for some reason. And it's the mob, somebody could have been like, hey, those are rich people over there. Let's go over there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's very likely. So, well, gentlemen, I definitely feel like we have covered some good topics, and I don't think we want to bore our listeners for too much longer. But no, I definitely, I feel like we accomplished a lot, and I definitely hope too that this, was a little educational, for the N.A.P. And I actually would be welcome to hearing some feedback from, people as to, like opinions as to why they think that the N.A.P. was or was not violated in those scenarios, or even give examples of other N.A.P. Because this is definitely, it's not just an educational thing that we're trying to teach other people. We want other people, especially within our community, to reach out and try and inform people, because the outside of the community need to understand that, especially being the Liberty Movement, Boogaloo Movement, however you want to call yourselves, being a part of the libertarian community, we, are not what the government is trying to paint us out to be, or the media painting us out to be with all the propaganda. We truly want liberty, and we truly try to understand each scenario and practice the non-aggression principle, because we believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Send questions and responses to us at HIBISCUSOCIETIE at Twitter,
or treeofliberty.me.
The FBI is conducting a full investigation while the Boogaloo movement, which is an accelerationist term,
showcase the threat from individuals affiliated with the Boogaloo movement. The Boogaloo network as a whole appears to be largely anti-government